I'm going to read some lines to you that I've transcribed from a video that I just watched by YouTube user I'm You and You're Me, a channel that's well worth your attention, I think. That's Brian Lake. Hi, Brian. Brian says, "Why do we have such a high value on this thing called truth? If the truth of something strips you of hope and makes it impossible for you to go on, then it doesn't have very much value for me. I would rather take the lie and have a life to live. There used to be a time when people could look up at the night sky and see the stars and believe anything that they wanted to believe. And who was to say they were wrong? Nobody knew anything. Nobody knew the things that we know now. Now that we know all the things that we know now, we can't believe in all kinds of things because we know better. And the price of knowing it has a cost. The price of knowing costs you your ability to believe in something. And the cost of that might cost you your life. Because in order to go on, in a way, you sort of have to believe in something that's not really true. The cost of the truth. What if the cost is too high? If the cost is too high, which it can be, then I'd rather go back to not knowing." Now, I can empathize a lot with these words that Brian is saying, but I have to go way back into my history to empathize with this. So I want to offer a counter opinion, because I've got to say that my own personal existential quest, for want of a better term, has taken me to a very different place. It has filled my life with a sense of hope and with a playfulness, with a sense of wonder. And what I have now, as a result of just ruthlessly pursuing the truth, even when what I'm looking at isn't making me feel particularly good, as a result of that, it has taken me to a very good place. Now, I have a background, as most people know, in Christianity, and a background in atheism, basic materialistic atheism. Neither of those things were very satisfying. In fact, the attitude that Brian describes here resembles very much how I felt in my early 20s, at a time in my life when I had temporarily put Christianity aside and I was running with atheism, and life felt very, very meaningless. I felt very alienated from the universe, if that makes any sense. You know, you were just this thing that didn't have any meaning, this speck. And it depressed the hell out of me. And it always felt to me that it would be better. I always felt, I wish I could have the sense of hope that Christianity gave me. And then eventually I made a return to Christianity, and I got that back again. The life no longer seemed meaningless. But there was a cost to that. The cost to believing something that isn't true is that it doesn't work. Or it may not work. The thing is, if you believe something, let's use Christianity as an example, but it really could be any delusion. But let's use Christianity as an example. You believe, for instance, that God is looking after you. That obviously fills you with a sense of security. But if that's just some kind of placebo, then behind that security, life really could throw anything at you. Now, you may get through life without any major tragedy, and you'll go to your deathbed thinking, well, God has been so good to me throughout my life, and now I'm going to heaven, and everything will be fine. But you could have some terrible tragedy in your life that makes you think, Lord, why are you doing this to me? And then this loving God ends up becoming a kind of ogre as you face all kinds of things and have no answer for why they're happening, when the answer is really simple. The answer is that the universe does not care about you. There is no God up there that cares about you. And in a circumstance like that, the delusion becomes a poison for your life. Whereas the truth which is obvious to any piece of roadkill that you see, so a dead animal on the side of the road. There was no God looking after that animal. In fact, when a pedestrian gets knocked down and killed by a car, that pedestrian is just roadkill. These things happen. So, if I had a really bad tragedy in my life, I would much prefer to be able to say to myself, nobody was orchestrating this. This was accidental, random. There's nobody to blame. It just is. That to me would make me more psychologically well than dealing with the idea of a monstrous God who wants to punish me for some mysterious reason that is supposedly for my benefit that I can't really see. See the way you have to wrap your mind around all kinds of nonsense? If you choose the lie, there's a big cost, you see. Now, when I finally got over the fact that Christianity was false, and also the fact that materialistic, dualistic atheism was also false, and I started to look into non-duality or monism and pantheism, ideas that seemed more true. So I started putting it all together, and that's been the story of my life for the past 5 years. And it's not just an intellectual quest, it has a very deep effect on my life. It affects how I look upon death, how I look upon the human ego. I can no longer separate myself from the whole. So there aren't really any individuals, there is just the universe experiencing itself via multiple points of apparent limitation. There's no soul. That's a pernicious word. We can sometimes make up words and think that these things are real just because we've got a word for it. But no, there is no soul. The best way to model human consciousness, at least how I put it together, is that you are a focal point of limited awareness for the universe or for the infinite. So the only real you is the whole. So this here, as Benjamin Smythe sometimes calls it, this is just a name tag, and it's not going anywhere. Now, the fact that I'm going to die, that doesn't rob my life of meaning. Because I understand that the only possible meaning the universe could have is experience itself, the variety of experience, to live for life's own sake. Now, everybody's doing that, whether they realize that or not. They are living out the meaning of life because you can't escape it. Even if you don't realize it, you're still having an experience, which is the meaning of life. So I don't like to say, you would say you've used the word nihilism. I don't think that's a good word to use in this sort of a context. I think I get where you're coming from, because you were talking about the same sort of stuff that I was talking about, that it's really all just about continual forward motion of time with no actual goal. And you're right, because there can't really be a goal. The thing about the universe being purpose-driven towards some kind of definite goal is that when you reach the goal, wouldn't you need another goal? So, time, at least as in terms of how we experience it, it must be forever. Otherwise, the universe is just like a still photograph, which makes no sense whatsoever. You can either have change or no change. So, it must be about the change. Life has to be about the change, the experience. And, human death is a part of human life. People give birth and they pop out their replacements, and those replacements go on, they pop out more replacements. And that's how it goes. And I don't feel any sense of depression whatsoever about the fact that this life is going to end, because I hold this life very loosely. I know that if I suddenly had the news that I was about to die, I would be, oh no, and it would be like terrible. But there's a deeper part of me that also is kind of having a little wink and realizing this is all just a game and it's not serious. And that takes the sting out of death. And you realize that when the organism starts flailing about and panicking, that's just what the organism is supposed to do. But you are not the organism. You are using the organism. Because there's only the whole. There are no parts, really. This is just a pattern in the universe. That picture on the wall behind me is just a pattern in the universe. The air between me and that picture behind me is just a pattern in the universe. And the only reason why we distinguish separate objects is the different molecular bonding or chemical bonding in the molecules of the air and in the molecules of the wood and the glass and the flesh, which allows us to perceive separate objects. But there's nothing really separate. It's all just one big tapestry. So I don't know if anything I'm saying is helpful to you, but it baffles me, Brian, because I know you're on the same kind of pantheist vibe, non-duality vibe that I'm on, but it seems to have taken you to a place of hopelessness, whereas to me it's taken me to a place of playfulness. The universe is just having a game. It can't be purpose-driven towards a specific goal. But it is purpose-driven in the sense that the universe wishes to experience itself. And in order to do that, it takes on form forever. There had to have been an infinite regress of previous universes and an infinite progress of universes after this. It can't have been any other way. And I think you would probably agree with that. Because the problem with the idea of time having a beginning is that any act of creation takes place in time. Therefore, in order for time to have had a beginning, it had to already be there, which makes no sense. You've indicated that you're kind of getting away from the existential thinking. In a sense, it's less of a priority for me as well, because I think the insights are coming much slower now than they used to. And I read a book there a little while ago by Deepak Chopra, and it was the first time I'd ever read that author, and almost everything in it I had already mined those avenues of thought before. So I'm wondering, am I at the point where I've got nothing much else to learn of any real value, at least in this sort of existential type quest? And sort of the pinnacle that I want to kind of leave behind is my book, A Universe, when it's finally out in paperback, which I hope to do sometime in 2014. But I said that in 2013. I keep tweaking it, you see. But there's not an awful lot of it that has changed over the past while. So I think I'm getting close. Okay. I think that's it. I know you like Alan Watts, Brian. I do too. And he asks the question, is it serious? And the answer is no. It has to be no. For any number of reasons. Look at the amount of death and suffering that took place across the entire history of cellular life on this planet. The whole evolutionary process happened as a result of an absolutely unimaginable amount of bloodshed as organisms competed and better organisms won while other organisms went extinct. And of course, this bloody battle continues as everything tries to eat everything else in competition for resources. And there's nothing strange about that. I mean, it's really a kind of macroscopic version of what's happening microscopically with your own body. You know, the immune system battles invaders all the time. Half the time you don't even know it's happening. unless you get a cold or something. So this is the way the universe works. It's a dance. It's a dance of energy on every fractal level, and it's not to be taken seriously because nothing is permanent. Everything changes, and death is just change. That makes me feel good. I don't know about you, but that makes me feel good. It allows me to hold my life very loosely, to realize that life is a profoundly weird and funny thing. And I can take all the baggage of religion, throw it all away, and take all of the horrible feelings of alienation that happened as a result of atheism, and I can realize that's not true either. And here I am in a place where everything's pretty good. The only time I ever really feel depressed, is if it's like bad weather outside, or I've been, haven't been taking care of myself, I've been eating too much or whatever. These are the things that make me feel depressed, or haven't been getting enough sleep. I never get depressed by philosophy. And if that is happening, as it seems to be happening to you, it's probably a signpost that you've made a wrong turn somewhere and you need to reassess something. Because I fundamentally do not believe that the truth is something to be dreaded or shunned or thrown away in favour of a delusion. Not under any circumstances. Take care, buddy.